This week in the Safety Consultant Podcast, we talked to Jake Woolfenden of Summit Safety Group about his journey to become a safety consultant, the mindset he has about public speaking, considerations for proposals, systems for running a safety consulting firm, and having the right mindset as a safety consultant.
This episode is powered by Safety FM.
Hi, I'm Sheldon Primus. I'm here to help you learn the business of safety consulting. This podcast, The Safety Consultant, will give you the tools to be your own boss by protecting the safety and health of others. It's a win-win. But before this episode, here's a message from our sponsor.
Hi, everybody. Todd Conklin. I know lots of you get your information while you drive down the road or sit on planes or sit in meetings and look interested. And now you should know that 3 of my books are available for your listening pleasure on Audible. With the help of Jay Allen and Safety FM, we've produced 3 of the books, Workplace Fatalities, The 5 Principles of Human Performance, and my very first book, Simple Revolutionary Acts, and they're available now where you get audiobooks.
Do you want to be a safety consultant? Listen to Dr. Jay Allen of Safety FM give his experience after taking the Safety Consultant Blueprint course.
But I really think that you have a genuine, good product there that can really assist people if they're interested in becoming a safety consultant.
Register for the Safety Consultant Blueprint at www.safetyconsultantblueprint.com. Enter code PODCAST for a special discount.
Yeah, so my my undergrad is actually in biblical studies and philosophy, and then so kind of during that time, I was getting involved very heavily into social work and just, you know, there were some job opportunities really that I had some friends that were working at. And so I started working. I mean, even like in the summers and stuff, when I played football in college, but when I was not training or doing something else, I was working at like Boys and Girls Club or something like that and trying to help out and make some money, to be honest with you. So it was kind of a culmination of things. But so that kind of led to me kind of just developing a passion for social work and that population of people. And so I ended up going to get my master's degree in clinical counseling. And so I don't anymore, but I used to have a license. I had an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor. And so really, I mean, all the time that I was involved in social work and all that, it was probably about 7-8 years. And then I had a private practice in downtown Springfield where I met usually in the evenings. And so, yeah. I mean, it was good. I just got kind of, it wasn't something that I wanted to do the rest of my life. I mean, I got a little bit burned out. Yeah. And really, honestly, I just have a passion for business too. I mean, and so even during that time, I had started, I was working full time at a place called Borough Behavioral Health. It's a large organization here in the Springfield area. It serves kind of the Southwest Missouri part of the state for mental health. And so I was working with them as a social worker for about 4 years or so, and then doing my master's program, things like that during that time. And I just I was like, you know what, I need to do something else. So I'd actually started a lawn and landscape business, and that was cathartic for me. So that was one I could pour into something, that was completely different. I loved business. I just went out there. Anything that I put in is what I was going to get out of it. So long story short, flash forward, I sold that 4 years later to a large company here locally. And then so my dad owned a construction company on the East Coast. So I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area, on the Virginia side. I was born in Alexandria, Virginia, and long story short, my dad owned a construction company out on the East Coast for about 30 some years. So what he did was he had crews that would install the rebar. So iron workers, but they didn't do any structural steel. And so he did that for like I said, so 30-some years. I mean, they did a lot of big commercial projects over that time, high rises, bridges. I mean, that was the bread and butter of what they did. And so during that time, he developed some really, great relationships with some larger steel manufacturers, rebar manufacturers, and one of those was called Harris Rebar, and they're a huge company. And so it was right at the downturn. So I had just sold my lawn business, which that ended up being awesome. That was an awesome sale.
What year?
That was 2008, and then my dad and I wanted to get into business together. And so we started, actually he kind of had retired from the East Coast, had moved out here to the Midwest, be close to grandkids and, all that. And so, yeah, we started a business, but that's when everything just tanked. So it was a horrible time to start a construction business. Everything was drying up, and man, you talk about just provision, God's provision. I mean, there's no question that, he just kind of aligned things in our direction, and we were able to get picked up as consultants for Harris Rebar. And so that started a whole nother journey. And so we went in, I was actually originally with a company called Ambassador Steel. They had about 30 some locations around the Midwest. They were based out of Indiana, and Harris Rebar had just been bought by Nucor Steel. Harris Rebar is based out of Canada, but they had probably equally about the same number of locations around the country. They were spread out more kind of East Coast, West Coast. They're, more that area, and then of course Canada as well. Yeah. But so there was a lot of those acquisitions that were going on. We happened to just come in at that time. We got picked up by Ambassador because they wanted to get in the in-place business. So all they had was fabrication shops. They wanted to get into the field division and started, placing their own rebar. My dad and I got hired to be consultants to help facilitate that change at each one of those, 30 locations or whatever. And so, man, for about 4 or 5 years, all I was doing was flying out somewhere every week. My dad continued to work on some other special project type stuff. Because obviously he's got the skill in that. That's not my background. But we were able to get me into safety, basically, is what they ended up doing. And so they said, hey, we think you've got all the tools necessary to help us in the field with safety and all that stuff. And so really about halfway through my time there, they started transitioning me into the safety world. And that I'd go out to California, get a bunch of training. I'd go to different places and get in any of the training that I could. And then, of course, I'm just kind of thrown to the wolves. Just going out there and learning on the projects, learning with contractors and all that stuff. So that's how I got into safety. And then the way that I got into Summit Safety was because I got so tired of traveling. I've got 3 kids, and it's just not conducive to a family life and any of that. So yeah, man. So I decided, I said, hey, I've got to do something else. And I just, and plus just working for such a large corporation, the entrepreneur in me just was not being satisfied, and it had nothing to do with them. I appreciate very much all the experience I had, everything they did for us. They really took us under their wing, and there's so many things that I learned through those experiences, but it just wasn't filling me. Not to mention, so not only was it not filling me, it wasn't conducive to a family life. I felt like I was missing out on a lot of stuff as my kids were growing up, and they were really young at the time, so it was fine. Yeah. But I just knew that long term, that's not what I wanted to do, and that's not what I wanted my life to look like. Summit Safety started in 1998 by the former owner of the company. His name was Mike, great guy. I didn't know Mike at all, but I knew a guy who owned an employee drug testing company. And so he had known Mike through that. I was reaching out to several local professionals. Hey, I'm looking for something new. I'm looking for new opportunities. Not even at all, really. I was not honestly thinking about anything in the world of safety. Although I enjoyed what I was doing, it just, I was open to whatever. Obviously I've got a very eclectic background from biblical studies to
absolutely
degree in counseling. And then now I'm getting into safety and all this other stuff. It's just kind of crazy to see that journey, kind of unfold. But this guy was like, hey, literally we met for coffee that day. or as we're sitting there, he's calling his father-in-law saying, hey, his father-in-law is a very successful entrepreneur here locally, just has a lot of contacts, and just also a very generous man. And he had said, hey, isn't that company Summit Safety for sale? I've got a guy that's actually, been in the field of business or field of safety for the last, few years, and he's looking to transition. He's just started traveling, blah, 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 and he wants to get in and do something else. And no joke, I mean, from that point to the time of closing the business, I mean, it was probably about a month. And again, you talk about
that's quick.
Yeah, you talk about things being orchestrated. I mean, there's absolutely no way. Man, I can't tell you just what that moment meant to me. The cost of the business was extremely expensive. No bank would take any loan because it's blue sky. It's all, it doesn't matter if you even have contracts or anything else. I mean, it's just all consulting. There's nothing for them to come in and take. I mean, there was literally nothing except for a handful of cars, which were worthless to them, meant nothing to them. So
yeah,
even my, so it was the guy that I met with, and I ended up partnering on that business. So it was his father-in-law that didn't know me at all, completely just gave me way too much of a percentage because I just didn't have much to bring in. And it was just like, look, man, go. And I love planting the seeds of, generosity and just entrepreneurship and all that stuff, and that's a passion of mine, and I want to see you go and succeed. And I'm just sitting there like, what? I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, you're basically handing over the keys to something that the former owner had done a fantastic job of building up and getting to the point where we were when we started.
What did it look like at that time?
Well, so we had a full-time consultant in Kansas City. We were going, there was a full-time consultant in St. Louis. And then we're based here in Springfield, Missouri. And then there were a couple of consultants down here, including the owner. And so, hundreds of clients on the books. Most of our clients are monthly. Probably about 90% of our clients we meet on a monthly basis. They have a certain number of allotted hours that we go in on site and work with them. And so when we came in, it was one of those things. And look, I say, I probably would have done the exact same thing. So it's not anything against him. It's just that before you realize that I'm where I'm at, and I don't have a lot of systems in place. There wasn't a lot of stuff there that we were able to put in place. And so project management systems and, tracking our time, tracking every single note and interaction with our clients, and, scanning all the documentation that we do with them and keeping it on file and things like that. So, I mean, that's just where we were able to take it to the next level. And so my partner and I had a great relationship. He was very hands off because he was very busy in at the time it was called Employee Screening Services. It's called Tomo, but they're nationwide. They're all over the place. It was just blowing up. And so he's like, look, man, he's like, you're doing 100% of this. And, I want you to buy me out and just go and own it. So that was about 2.5 years ago. So I bought him out. So I'm now 100% owner as of 2.5 years ago or so. And, man, I can't, it's still through his father-in-law, which blows my mind, man. It actually makes me want to kind of tear up a little bit because I've told him this, and I'm still in contact with him, obviously, because he's still holding the note, and I pay him a ridiculous amount of money every month to pay off this loan. But what he did and the way that he did it, nobody would have done it, man. And to not even know me and to take a chance on me, and that fuels me. That fuels me to want to go out and just kill it every day, because I don't want to let him down, and I want to make sure that I'm modeling the same thing that he did plant in me. And so even my own journey of generosity and the things that I want to pour back into has very much continued to grow with every year that I've had this business. And man, it's a direct reflection back to what they did. I get people that ask me all the time, like, what do I need to do? What can I do to try to, not do the same thing or anything, but just, I'd like to do some similar things. What do I need to do? And I first off, I love when people reach out, because I again, I mean, the story that I just shared, I can't help but want to pour back in. You know, I want to look for those opportunities to do the same thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm always basically just telling them the same thing. It's simple, but it's difficult. You got to just be consistent. You have to make the choice that whatever you do, you know, make it to where it's reasonable. I mean, you know, mine was once a week, and at the time, man, I knew nothing about. I'm not a videographer. I don't know anything about lighting. I don't know anything about audio. I don't know anything about editing. I don't know anything about nothing. I knew none of that stuff. And so for me, if you look at like the really early videos, I mean, they were rough. You know, they were just, I was doing the best that I could, and it's fine. I mean, it's, you know, that's just what everybody has to do. And I think what so many people get caught up in is they look and see where they want to be. They say, oh, that's what I need to do. I need to get to that level, or I need to go do that. They don't realize that everybody had that. I mean, I had the same thing. Everybody was looking to somebody to be like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. And so to get there, you just got to start somewhere. You just got to make the commitment to do it, regardless of how bad you think it is or whatever. I mean, you just got to allow yourself to, you got to put yourself out there. Most people don't want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't feel like they have the tools or the whatever it is. And it's like, man, you probably do. I mean, you probably got a knowledge base, you've got a niche, you've got something that you can get out there, and you're just going to figure it out as you go. And then, you know, honestly, there's been some things that along the way, you know, I got some really large clients that wanted me to do the video stuff for them. So they wanted digital training that could reach, you know, the thousands of different employees and different, you know, that they had. And so they're like, hey, we want you to do this. And so when you're getting paid, you know, a certain amount of money to do that, there's a little bit more pressure to make things happen, research how to do things better, how to look more professional.
Yeah.
But man, I wouldn't have even been in that position if I didn't just pull the trigger and say, I'm committing to do this. And man, it was, before I got those calls, it was probably a solid year, you know, before those calls were coming in to do some of those things to get paid. But, you know, when I started the YouTube thing, it was number one, because we have so many clients, I can't get around to everybody. I mean, our consultants are the face of our business, and I want them to be the face of our business.
Yeah. Now, when you, I know you're giving your story on going into the YouTube, and that basically you're, from what I'm beginning to hear before I broke your train of thought as asking you how many consultants you had, but
no, you're good,
you're
man.
basically saying it turned out that it looked like you were saying that it was because you couldn't get to every place at every time. You had a demand, and therefore you had to make it work because clients needed you, and you're going to figure the thing out no matter what.
Yeah. So, you know, okay, so coming in as a new owner, you know, the majority of the clients that we had a great relationship with the previous owner. And part of that is because, I mean, you had a 15-year relationship with him. And so several of those customers had grown with him. And so for me coming in as this young, brand new, less experienced, I mean, a lot of things going against me, I knew that I needed to try to do my best to stay in front of them, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to go around just meeting with them constantly. And so and I wanted to feed them knowledge. I wanted them to know what was going on, what they needed to be aware of. I also wanted my consultants. I want, part of my job, and it's of course their job too, is to stay up on everything that's going on. But you know, they're busy doing the day-to-day stuff, and so for me, it's a big part of my job as the leader of this group to say, hey, you know, here's the stuff that is coming down. Here's what you need to know. Here's what we need to be passed on to our clients. So it killed several birds with one stone. I was able to, you know, get out there in front of our clients and say, hey, here's stuff that's going on. By the way, hi, it's me. You know, I am actually alive. You know, I do exist. But it was also able to feed the consultants, you know, what they needed to know and give them some very easy tools to go in and say, hey, I don't know if you saw Jake's video or whatever, but this is what we need to be looking out for. Here's some things that we need to be, you know, OSHA's out there looking for this. And so we need to be, you know, whether it's air sampling or whatever, we need to be getting on top of that stuff to make sure that, if they come in and see what's going on out here, that you guys are squared away. And look, I mean, I also, when I say kill several birds with one stone, I mean, the other one is marketing. I mean, there's no question that, those two things were the most important thing to me. But I also realized that knowing that, growing that social media base, growing, just recognition in the industry and all those things was only going to be a benefit. And it wasn't free. I mean, it took me a lot of time, especially early on. I mean, it would take me numerous times to do the video, and I mean, just tripping over my words. And I can't tell you how awkward it was to sit and just stare at a camera, and act as, you know what I mean? And act as though there's, dozens of
You're in a full room of everybody.
Yeah. I mean, and try to have the same excitement and maybe even more so than I would in a room with people. And so, all just going through that whole process, it took a lot of time, and it definitely wasn't free, but I'll tell you, man, it was so much more of an investment in myself and just learning how to do those things and learning how to, when I was a kid growing up, I mean, my biggest fear by far was speaking in front of people. I mean, I was terrified. I mean, I'd go to, whether it was at school or, church or whatever, I mean, I'd be sitting in the back and just sweating. Like if there was a game or an activity that came up, I'd be like, I'd literally be in the back just sweating. Like, please don't call me. Please don't call me. Please don't call me. Please don't call me. And, and it's just, anytime I had to do a speech or whatever, I'd be sick for weeks before, knowing everything else could be fine, but knowing that, oh my gosh, in 3 weeks, I've got to do this speech, and I've got to it's 5 minutes, but I got to get up in front of the whole class. And I mean, it was just terrifying for me. And so, a lot of this is just working through my own fears too. It's putting me in a position where, I've gotten a ton of speaking engagements as a result of it. I speak a lot at different conferences and different opportunities. And it's just, for me, it's really been more of a personal journey of getting over a lot of those things too. And just being willing to put myself out there to, try to hone those skills and get better at it. So, I still get nervous.
So let's say someone listening to us wants to say, "Hey, I got that same thing that Jake has. I get clammy and I can't speak and I trip over my words." So what do you do? What was your turning point between when I'm scared to speak to, I kind of enjoy this? How did you do it? If you could break it into steps, or not even steps, just break it into concepts of how you decided to do it.
Yeah, man. Great question. I think for me, it was, it genuinely came down to following my heart for whatever it is that I was talking about. So I just have the reason I've gotten into counseling, the reason I got into social work, the reason I got into all those things and safety is because I have a genuine heart for people. I want to, when I say, like, at the end of my videos, some of my buddies will make fun of me sometimes, but they're like, they'll kind of repeat what I say. Like, I don't say it every time, but I say it a lot of the times, like, hey, I may not know you, but
I don't know you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's true. I don't obviously I don't know them, but I do care about them. I mean, I'm in what I do. I'm trying to relay a message. When I go up and speak and I talk about, whatever the topic is, and I'm like Wednesday, I'm going up to Jefferson City and I'm speaking about suicide prevention. Obviously with my background and things like that, I mean, I'm very confident in that. I'm confident in the subject, but I'm also, I'm passionate about that opportunity to go in and educate people at how they can go and be gatekeepers for such an important topic at each one of the places they're at. So I always tell people, first off, if you don't like what you're doing, if you don't like what you're talking about, if you don't like talking about things that if you can't find a way to make the regulations real and genuine, or you're not doing the job right, number one. And maybe number two, you may need to go find something else, and that's okay. If it's going to be miserable for you and everybody else, if you're going into a class and you're teaching an Ocean 10 class, or you're teaching, just a 30-minute training, and you're barely able to get through it yourself, everybody that's sitting there on the other end is just going to be like, come on, man, you suck.
Yeah,
Get out of here, and it's not going to help your business anymore. Yeah, right. So, that's, to me, it's always about, how I go in with, my goal is to try to transform people's minds in a way that not necessarily transform them, but educate them and plant seeds to where they get passionate about the same thing that I'm talking about, so that when they go back, they feel some of that, and some of that, is left with them to then go and share and want to go research more, or want to go find ways, or, get those things connected at their site, so that things can make an improvement. Because I know that if that happens, then there are people on the other end that I don't know that are seeing benefits, and they are going to be able to have a better quality of life. And the thing, the metrics that we have in safety, we can't know the people that we are a part of saving. We don't know the knowledge that's being poured into people, that when they take that second thought about, hey, you know what, I shouldn't be doing this. And not even thinking about, Jake said this, or Wendy or Brian, or any of my consultants are saying this, but it's that, just that seed is there. And it, not us trying to take credit for it, but it's just there. And so when they go through and they think about those things, they're able to do something different that then led them to not have an amputation, or not have a serious injury, or not have a fatality. And, we don't, and that's stuff that I have to tell my consultants all the time, is, guys, we have such a great opportunity to go out and share this message with people. And when we do it in an effective way, those seeds that are planted are that much more, the opportunity for them to really take root and for them to stay and last is just that much more, there's that much more of an opportunity for them to then go out away from that training and do what we said, and literally protect them in the cases that we were talking about. So, all of that is how I kind of think about, even when I go in and do, a 45-minute or an hour and a half or whatever of speaking. I mean, that's the kind of mindset that I take into it. And so, when I'm encouraging other people to get over their fears, the way that I'm able to get over my fear is that at that point, it's not about me anymore. It's not about me being fearful. It's not about my presentation. I'm going to mess up. I'm okay with that. But if I can get my heart across, if I can get my passion across for what I want them to know, then regardless of it, how I may have come across, or how many times I may have stumbled, or acted nervous, or whatever, that's what's going to matter. And that's what people are going to take away from. And that's exactly what happens. I mean, that is what people walk away from. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I really feel that in many of those cases, and I'll give you for instance for myself, I actually, I teach a class called Certified Occupational Safety Specialist. And I also teach a class that Certified Occupational, or Certificate of Occupational Safety Managers. So when I was going through this process of becoming a trainer for this program, I actually had to go through different steps. And one of the steps was I needed to be observed as I was delivering their content, their material. So I was there delivering this content, and I was behind the podium, which I call the kiss of death. Because behind a podium, it's just like,
exactly.
I was stuck there, and I was literally going through, and I'm pretty sure it was the walking and working surface section of Subpart D, the old one before they changed it, right? So in general industry. So I'm going through that, and I'm literally going through, 1910, 20, 22, 23, 24.
Right.
And the person evaluating me fell asleep. I saw her sleeping.
Oh, man.
It was awful. So what I ended up having to do is they actually asked me to redo that stage before they let me take over the reins. And currently I think I'm like 42 classes that I've taught out of this program. But back then, I basically think, how would I like to hear this material and how can I make it where I am enjoying it as well as the students? So my mindset switched, and I had to think, all right, let's actually pretend that everyone here is just meeting at a coffee shop with friends, and I have to deliver information, but I'm going to receive as well. And that changed my mindset right there. When I got into the safety realm, especially being a safety consultant, I got fed up with where I was. I was working at a state program, and I decided, all right, I'm going to do this thing. But every once in a while, I get that, especially in the beginning, get that thing that they call the imposter syndrome, where you think, who am I to be telling these people, or who am I to say I'm the consultant and you have to listen to me? So what do you do when you get those moments?
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's a great question. I always come in with, I try every time to come in with a very humble attitude. I've got, one of the rules that I live by is stop being the expert. Because the people in the field, the people in the shop that are doing the work day to day are the ones that are the experts. And yes, we are experts in law. We're experts in regulation. We're experts in those things and maybe systems and processes. But when we go into a place, I don't know the equipment. I don't know the machines. I can't be an expert on that. And I'm okay with that. And that's what people don't, I feel like so many safety professionals want to go in and they feel like they got to be experts on all these things and all these operations, when even if they've been to something similar, that they oh yeah, I've done that. No, you haven't. You don't know the product itself is what makes it different. And there's no, that exact reason that OSHA says that everything has to be machine specific when it comes to training is for that very reason, because it doesn't matter that you've come from another facility. The fact that you get, when you've got to be retrained on forklift when you come into a new facility, it's because the facility's different. Just because it's a warehouse doesn't mean that the same hazards exist. There's different blind spots. There's different loading docks. There's, all these different things. And so when we come into a place, I'm always coming in from a place of humility and how can I help? You got me here for a reason. You're having a problem getting through to whether it's the employees or coming up with a new system or whatever. So I want you to share with me your expertise. I'll share my expertise, and let's join those two together so that we can come up with a workable solution that not only fits the regulations, but maybe is even better than that. And it's a best practice. It's going to keep people even safer, and it's going to be something that actually ultimately increases production, which, we all know. I mean, when you've got a facility that is zoned in on safety, their production is phenomenal because that's their attitude all the way through everything that they do. And I think we've got so much research now and so many different, we see it all the time. It's just not even an argument for us anymore. When people try to argue that stuff, I don't argue with them. I'm just like, you're not there yet. You let me know when it's okay. Everybody's got to go through their place and everybody's got to figure this stuff out on their own. And I just hope that, it's not something horrific that happens that gets you to wake up, but, we can only do so much, man. We are just consultants. We're there just to come in and lead them and guide them the best that we can. But at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to take the ownership of it. They're the ones that have to lead their teams. Man, I have full respect for that. You talk about being an evangelist. That's kind of what we are. That's kind of what we are. We get to come in, we get to swoop in and share the good news of all the truth and everything that's right and everything that's real. But the people that are there doing the day-to-day work, the ones that have to implement that, the ones that have to put that into practice and change the culture, that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's really where the true effort is. I've got a lot of respect for that process, and so for us, it's about partnering with them through that and ensuring that we can keep them on that path and give them every tool necessary to make them successful in the real work that's got to be done out there.
And that's what I'm hearing here is don't go in with the chip on your shoulder that they have to listen to you because you're the consultant and, get my way or the highway if, that kind of thinking. And that's also going to get you wrong. So I had another thought. It might be like completely left wing, but that's me. One of these thoughts come, I just let them go.
Yeah, sure, man. It's okay.
All right. How many domain names do you own?
How many domain names? Geez, it's actually funny you say that. I just had several that expired, which I haven't really let too many expire over the years. I probably only own. So I own obviously like things that are similar to what I have. So like summitsafetygroup.com, I've got like .org and .net and things like that. Just trying to keep it, I don't know why, honestly. There's so many. You can get .us and .biz and all that stuff. I don't have all of them. Yeah, right, exactly. So I've got several of those. I've got, we've launched a new service that started in January called Safety Consulting Now, which is our on-demand training platform. So I've got several of those as well. I had a couple, and I can't even remember what they were. They were, something to do with online stuff. As I was going through the process of trying to come up with a name for the Safety Consulting Now, I had gone ahead and just gotten those domains as well, just because I wasn't sure which direction we were going to go from a marketability standpoint. But so I've got some of those, and then I've got some from some other other business ventures outside of safety that I had kind of gotten into. I just don't have time for that other stuff, man. I've got so many, and honestly, man, I'm happy in what I can pour in with my own business. And this is why I love being an entrepreneur, because I love every aspect of it. I love being able to pour into my team. I love being able to pour into the growth of the business, and I love being able to be creative. I mean, this new training platform that we've got has been truly just a culmination of everything that I've done over the last 3-4 years for videos, and trying to make something that is genuine, something that's really going to reach people with, like as though we came in and did the training. And, it's not about some actor or somebody just sitting there and saying, and safety, this is what you need to know about, he's got like a great radio voice. And I just don't think people, the men and women that are out there doing this stuff every day, I just don't think they respect that. I don't think they appreciate that. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm not saying there can't be some benefit to it, but I mean, gosh,
it's a change in the times, because right now the time is raw and real. They want to see everything raw and real. So those of you that are listening, you didn't know, but I showed Jake my actual recording studio, which is in the bedroom that I right now. So exactly. Of course you don't see that, but that's the real part. It's real.
That's right. That's right. Well, and man, that's why podcasts are blowing up. I mean, that's people love to feel like they're a part of the conversation. They love to feel like they do, man. They want, I think you said it right on. They want raw and they want real, and that's what I think we're able to give in a professional way on that platform. And so anyway, I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm just saying domains. That made me think about that. I've just got several related to that, but that's probably not as many as I used to have. I will say that, because I think anybody who's got a business mind, as soon as they think of something, they get on and they're like, it's only $10. I can go to GoDaddy.com and get a handful of domains just in case I get into this down the road.
Just in case. That's what it's always just in case. I'm down from I think I had roughly about 175 different domain names. So I'm now in the 60 range.
Yeah, that's quite a bit, man. You start doing those annual renewals, I'm sure that's where you're like, all right, let's start cutting this down a little
Absolutely.
bit. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, do I really need to keep this one? Come on. Yeah, so I started, and the reason I asked is because I hear a theme from you is entrepreneurship, and that's what safety consultants is. The difference between a safety consultant, a safety executive, and a safety manager is you need each one of those levels. You need the specialist, you need the executive, you need the manager, but there's people who have something inside of them that says, I need to personally put my mark somewhere and I don't feel satisfied. I'm just dissatisfied with things.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the entrepreneur side, you're like, hey, now this is what I was thinking for. And that's when I started the show. The same thing is how can I help these people who they're entrepreneurs at heart, though they have the chops for safety? How can we bridge that gap for them so that it'll be sustainable? So that brings me to my next question for you. How did you bought into something which is unique from the aspect of safety consulting. So when you got in, you had to do a lot of actual, organizational things and get everything organizational, get it where it was truly the system in place, which is great. But how did you do it? Did you create your own system, or did you just go ahead and buy into a system and integrate it yourself, or how did you manage that part?
Yeah. It was kind of an evolution over time. A big part of when I first took over the business was just learning the business, was learning, my team. I mean, if my team would have left, I'd be stuck with a giant loan, and a loan debt and have nothing. I mean, everybody would have left. So much for me when I first came on was, okay, I've got to culturally be able to assist my team and make sure they know that they're priority number one, because I know that if they know that they're the priority, then they're going to maintain their clients as a priority. And it's just like I told you, I mean, one of our largest clients is it's a huge trust group that has thousands of employees that are a part of it, and I do video training for that entire trust group. So it goes out to 700 some offices or something, and that is something that I had to just figure out and do well, get better at, because knowing that there's such an audience and they're paying me this much money, it's like, hey, I've got to find a way. I mean, you're being pushed into those things where, that adversity is either going to make you or break you, and you've just got to make the decision which one you want it to do. And sometimes it feels like it's breaking you, but you just got to push through it.
Now, there's two things that just came up in my head that I was thinking of. One is, let's say you're let's do the easy one first. If you're starting a business, bootstrapping a business, safety consulting business, what is going to get you the most money immediately? If you do compliance service or if you do safety culture service?
I would say, I mean, just off the top of my head, I would say compliance service, you're going to have more opportunity. There's so many business coaches out there. There's so many people that will say that the culture that they're talking about will bleed into all these different departments. I don't necessarily believe that, but I think they market themselves that way. And because there's so many out there, I think it definitely benefits. But I think, if you've got somebody truly coming in just to focus on safety culture, that's different than somebody coming in and just talking about overall culture. You need both, but I think there's a lot of benefit to just really getting in a niche of safety culture. But so I say that because I think that you've got more opportunity from a compliance standpoint. There's just more HR managers. There's more there's more ownership that needs help with being led in the right direction with compliance. And, a lot of times compliance leads to culture. You end up talking about both at the same time. And same thing, when you go in and talk about culture, you can talk about compliance too. I think when you come in though with the hey, I'm waving the flag of compliance first and foremost, it gives you a better opportunity to talk about culture later. If you come in just talking about culture, sometimes they may a little bit be hesitant to talk about just the X's and the O's of the regulations and getting down to the nitty gritty of that. So sometimes they don't see those as the same thing, and there's a disconnect there. But I would say people that are just really trying to get into it, really focus on the compliance first, be an asset to them, show them that you can, through the things that you're showing them in your reports and your audits or, program review or whatever, that's going to give you the opportunity to then start the conversation in culture. So I would say go that way. I don't think you're wrong either way. I think you also have to evaluate where your strengths are. if you're somebody that tends to be a little bit more driven to the coaching end of it, then maybe you do want to start with culture first.
And then the other question that I had, I also was thinking, because you might do this often, if I had to put together a proposal for a site safety managing job where someone's going to hire me, I'm going to go to a site and let's say they need me 2 days out of the week and it's going to be a 6-month deal, and I've got to physically go there, maybe stay a night at a hotel for both nights that I'm there. So that means 3 nights, 3 days, 2 nights at a hotel. And then I've got to show up, be the site safety manager for that location. And they want me for 6 months. What are you charging? Or not even what are you charging? Let's go to how do you structure that proposal?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, from a proposal, like, okay, so like from what you said, if we went out, just like if we're going to go out for 3 days or something, all of the travel and expense is going to be on the client. That's written in the proposal. Obviously we're not picking up any of those costs, and that's just an expectation. And I think people need to feel comfortable doing that, because if you eat those costs, you've gone and done an entire week and you've got nothing to show for it. After all the travel is said, then, or even if you're trying to like, oh, okay, well, you pay for airfare, but I'll pay for my hotel. No, I mean, they need to cover everything, and that should be the expectation. But then, it's just depending on, we have typically a day rate. So when one of our consultants is out for an entire day, we just have a rate that we apply to that. We don't try to, we pretty much keep it the same across the board. Whether it's a large client or a small client, it is what it is. I mean, we're not lowering that and we're not raising that. So, and the same can be true with a lot of the classes we do. There's times where we do a per student basis, but then there's also times where we just do a flat fee because we know our time is our product. And so I know that, we've got it all laid out, what each one of our consultants need to be making from a productivity standpoint every single day. And so I know that when they're going to be out for a half a day or whatever, we're charging a little bit more than that half a day, because we know by the time they wrap up everything else that they then have to go somewhere else. And they may not be able to get a whole lot more in after that. But yeah, I mean, again, traveling, I know I'm kind of talking all over the place here, but traveling for it's just a per day rate plus all expenses paid. And then we also are factoring in typically reporting time, anything that we have to do over and above actual on-site time. So if we know that we're going to be writing programs after the fact, then we attach an hourly rate to that on top of everything else, so that they understand. We keep track of all that stuff in our project management system, but that's just kind of a trust there, where they've got to know that when we're working on that, a consultant is working on that. That's consultant time, and that's what that hourly rate is associated with.
I appreciate the thought process behind that, because a lot of people who are getting started, they're coming from either a salary base or they're coming from an hourly base. So in their mind, they're always thinking, I'm going to equate this to my personal salary that I used to make. And when they're on their own, they kind of forget that, or at least they feel bad. They say they want to price something so that it could be accepted easier. So what they'll do is they'll undercharge themselves, but don't understand that they have to pay for their insurance, their family needs, their needs for everything else. If they outsource it to someone else and do a 1099 miscellaneous to somebody else, then it's that cost as well. So I always say not everyone could afford you. Is that what you feel?
Absolutely. And you have to, it's easier when you're at a place, I think, when you're busy, and, it feels easier anyway. I mean, to know that you can say no to clients. It's hard when you're starting out, and I understand that. And there's, and you got to do what you got to do, to even especially if you're at a place where you're just trying to develop your name, part of that is an investment in getting yourself out there. And I think some of those rates can grow grow over time. It's just that I think what a lot of people struggle with is, and I think you're kind of alluding to this, is that they don't give themselves enough credit even over time. They kind of stay in that rut and they just kind of stay at those levels when really their expertise has continued to grow. Their exposure to all these different industries as a consultant has continued to grow, which gives them, we have safety managers that we work with that are great safety managers, but they've been in the same place for 20 some years. We see hundreds and hundreds of different industries every single year. I mean, just constantly being exposed. So that in and of itself carries with it a weight of expertise that a lot of people don't want to give themselves credit for. But that's why you're a consultant, and that's why they're probably hiring you, is because they need that outside perspective of, hey, what are people in my industry doing? Or hey, maybe not my industry, but I've seen this machine or this type of equipment somewhere else, and I've dealt with OSHA on this. And so those are the kind of things that, we argue tons of OSHA cases on behalf of our clients and people that become
informal conference.
Informal conferences. I've done willful violations. I've done formal conferences. We're always looking for the details of their programs and stuff. And so through those processes, as we've gained knowledge as to what OSHA is looking for, what attorneys look for in cases, we're able to take that expertise and bring it to the client and say, look, I understand your perspective. I understand why you might think this, but this is how they're actually enforcing their own laws. This is how they're governing industries like yours based on these cases that we've been a part of and all that. And so again, as people gain that type of knowledge and expertise, they need to put value to it, and they need to not short themselves. And what it does too is it just helps the community of consultants, because anybody who's always the lowest bidder doesn't help anybody else in their community.
Correct.
It doesn't help them. They're not giving. They could be doing far less work for more money and probably having a better life and a better livelihood. And it just cuts the knees out of everybody else who may appear to the client to be the same. And even if they are the same, they should still raise that bar for the rest of the community, so that you're not always being the cheapest.
Yeah.
And you're making it hard for somebody that's coming in at a legitimate price. And we don't really worry about that. I worry about what I can control. I don't worry about my competitors. I don't worry about any of that. In my mind, I'm respectful of my competitors, but I definitely don't fear them, because I'm going to always look to be better. And I'm also of the growth mentality that the more people we have out there, the more people that are getting helped. And I think that's a good thing. And we can't service everybody, we're just not. So there's plenty of work out there. There's plenty of room for other consultants. And I want to help people get there too. And I think, man, I think you've done a fantastic job of promoting that. And I think that's really been incredible. I think it's cool to see what you've done and continue to do, and creating that blueprint for consultants and helping them get up and running. I think that's awesome, man.
I appreciate that. I'm of the same mindset of you, is there's room for this field for everyone. So really, if you can't hold your weight in the actual area that you're in and be a quality consultant, that word will get around. Yeah. So, and then also, and that word will get around too. So I truly believe the best I could do is I think of it two ways. Yes, I definitely think of it as a business opportunity, so I can't lie and say it's not. But the win-win of it is everyone will also be better in the actual safety consulting job that they do, that therefore other people will become safe and sound, and they'll come home with all the fingers and toes they came to work with. I used to say 5. I mean 10 fingers and 10 toes, but people don't come in with that.
Not everybody has that. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't say that anymore. I learned not to say that anymore.
Yeah.
I truly believe that in that case, it makes a lot to me. Just go ahead and tell everyone about, what you do and where you're located and how they could reach you.
Yeah, sure, man. I appreciate that. We Summit Safety Group is a safety consulting group. We go out and assist clients on anything OSHA related. We do really hone in on OSHA specific stuff. There used to be some stuff that would be done with EPA, DNR. We do very, very minimal amount of that. We've got great referral relationships here in the Midwest that we send that stuff to. They are the pros, and so we send them that stuff. They're also just happen to be a big client of ours too, so it really just works out. But yeah, I mean, we've got a full-time operation in Kansas City. We're based here in Springfield, Missouri, and then we go one full week in St. Louis. But we work all throughout the Midwest. We've got clients all throughout the Midwest: Oklahoma, Kansas, Illinois, obviously Missouri, even in Iowa, northern Arkansas. Not just northern Arkansas, but we have more in northern Arkansas. We have throughout Arkansas, and then we follow clients, all over the country as they have different locations and different operations in different places. So that is first and foremost. But we did, as I kind of alluded to earlier, we did just launch a new platform that's been 3 years in the making, developing that content, really trying to hone in that content to get it to a place where, I'm only spending 20 to 30 minutes on those awareness level trainings like, arc flash and ladder safety and fall protection and all those things, and really just trying to get it to the point where, when they leave that training, they feel like they can take some real core nuggets of truth with them. It is very similar to a Netflix style platform. It's a great platform that we've invested in. It flows really well. It streams anywhere on any device. You can even download it. If you're a subscriber, you can download it for offline content. So if you're having issues in job sites or trailers, or even just a manufacturing facility, we've got clients that are underground at different places that have issues with some things, even with Wi-Fi sometimes. So you can download those for offline content. You can plug it into an Apple TV and keep it all there, whatever you want to do. But we're just continuing to add new content to it all the time. I've got Toolbox Talk series that we've been adding. We've got, a few dozen of those up there now, and I'm just continuing to add new stuff. We've got contributor series where we've got, experts in their field. We've got insurance companies. We've got agencies. We've got, like I told you, we've got, a military individual that's coming in and talking about that military mindset and how it relates to safety. A lot of really cool things that we're creating. And
give us the domain names.
It's summitsafetygroup.com is our kind of core fundamental business, and then safetyconsultingnow.com is the online platform. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, Jake Woolfenden. I don't really use my business one too often. I mean, I just have so many more followers on LinkedIn that are just from my personal profile, then it makes sense to just keep that, and that's what I've worked to grow anyway. And then Facebook and Twitter and all that, but really LinkedIn is kind of the primary source for me within the safety community. So yeah, that's about it, man. Come find me anywhere. Message me on LinkedIn.
And on behalf of all our LinkedIn buddies and everything else, I want to thank you for the cup of coffee you gave us in the beginning of the year.
Oh yeah, man. Awesome. Of course. Yeah, no, I was happy to do that. That was
promotion.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. That was fun. I always enjoy trying to come up with new kind of fun things to do. So it was cool.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for coming in on me.
All right, buddy. Yeah, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Stay tuned for the tip of the week.
Do you want to be a safety consultant? Listen to Dr. J. Allen of Safety FM give his experience after taking the Safety Consultant Blueprint course.
I have actually done research on different consultants and looked at different consulting courses and so on. There is a pretty fancy, very expensive consulting course that is out there. I have actually purchased the consulting course, was interested in it. It has good information, don't get me wrong. But you have a consulting course that really drives people onto focusing on safety and how to become a safety consultant. I will tell you, on your particular course, there was better information in that particular regards than the other consulting course that was more of a generalist form. but I felt like I got more information out of yours on you giving people direct path on what to do step by step. But I really think that you have a genuine good product there that can really assist people if they're interested in becoming a safety consultant.
Register for the Safety Consultant Blueprint at www.safetyconsultantblueprint.com. Enter code PODCAST for a special discount.
The tip of the week is to invest in your company. You ever hear the saying, it takes money to make money? They're actually right. It is true. It does take money to make money. I've had to do several courses to invest in myself to make sure that I am up to date with the latest practices, the latest information. So that course that I would have to take, I have to fly to, I have to pay the hotels, I got to pay for registration. That's one of the things. Upgrading some business programs. All those things take money. But it sets you apart so that, therefore, when it's ready for you to give back to your clients, you now have a product or a service that you may have paid into, even if you had to hire someone to help you develop a website. That's an investment into your company. So don't think of it as money going out, all the stuff that you're spending money on. Think of it as an investment into your company so that you could bring money in. And in some cases, some of these investments that you're using to bring money in to service your clients better can also be tax deductible as well. So you have to talk to a tax accountant or a specialist in that field just to see if there is something that you could write off. But the mere thought of investing versus spending money is the mindset shift that you'll need to make. So yes, it does take money to make money. So the tip of the week is invest in your business so that you can make more money for your business.
This episode has been powered by Safety FM.